Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ottumwa City Council meeting. I'm going to call our meeting to order, and if everybody would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Galloway.
Here.
Councilmember Hoffman.
Here.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Here.
Councilmember Pope. Mayor Johnson.
Here. The next item on the agenda is to approve tonight's consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Is there any further discussion? If not, if not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Yes. Okay, the next item is to approve tonight's city council agenda. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Yes.
The next item is the city administrator's report to council and citizens. So I'll turn it over to Phil Rath, the city administrator.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. I had a couple of things to note before I get to the item that's on the agenda here. The first thing is the council is aware, but also for the public, in regards to the golf course maintenance or operator agreement, we had 3 proposals submitted. Those were scored by a committee, and the committee thought it best to have each of those individuals make a presentation. So it'll be a special council meeting next week, Tuesday, starting at 5 o'clock. So it's a different time, but that'll be here, starting at 5 o'clock, to hear presentations from each of those entities. The council will ask a specific set of questions of each of them, and ideally they will deliberate to make a decision that night, but they're under no obligation to if there's further discussion or questions need to be asked or answered. So that is where the golf course maintenance agreement is. There'll be a special meeting December 12th, 5 o'clock at Bridgeview Center here, and each of the respondents will be asked to make a presentation. The next one, I am going to turn over to Councilwoman Galloway, who wants to make a presentation of the plaque that she had prepared, and so I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Administrator Rath. Today, I just wanted to take a few moments, and I know it's December, and Halloween was in October, so we're a little late, but that's okay. Today, I wanted to recognize our first winners of the Spooky Nights and Lights Halloween Decorating Contest. Our plaque will be sitting at City Hall, but I would like to recognize Debbie and David Truitt and their friend Jim Moore. And I think Debbie wanted to just say a few words. So Debbie, if you wanted to come forward, we would love to recognize you. And again, I just want to thank Debbie and David Truitt and Jim for participating, and everyone who participated. It was a lot of fun, and the community really got behind it. And I am proud to say we had no negative comments on any Facebook post regarding the Spooky Nights and Lights. So excited about that.
Well,
Debbie, they let you up here by yourself.
I guess that's the way it always is.
If you need to pull that mic down, you can pull it down.
Well, I think they can hear me. I've been told that my voice carries. I wanted to thank you. David and I have been doing Halloween for 36 years, and I'm 72 now, and David's 71. I know we don't have a lot of Halloweens left, so it meant a lot to me to win this year. And I also wanted to recognize our friend Jim Moore, our friend and neighbor. He's helped us for about 17 years, and as we get older, it gets harder to do some of the things we do, and we could not do it without Jim. So if you're not going to come up here, I'd at least like you guys to stand. They didn't look at that plaque when you were taking my picture. I was trying so hard to not look dorky. very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Again, I appreciate you participating in our first, hopefully, annual Spooky Nights and Lights, and we couldn't be more proud that you all are the first names on there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, thank you to our judges who assisted with that, and I hope you had fun doing it, so. Yes, good.
All right.
Thank you.
And now the item that's on the agenda, I wanted to introduce Jessica Kinzer, our interim finance director. I mentioned at the last meeting that she was taking on that role and assisting the city with getting all of it caught up in our financial reporting. And I know I was going to turn it over to her to provide an update of the status of things and do it from there. Perfect.
Thank you. As Phil said, my name is Jessica Kinzer, and I've been working in a very minor role in the finance department since the end of July, and so I had a solid knowledge base to step right in to the interim position. I am happy to report that we have reconciled fiscal year 23. We did publish the annual financial report right when we needed to, basically on November 28th. And we had not reconciled before that, and there was an error that, when talking with the state, was significant enough to to revise the report and to republish. So you will see a new publication for the annual financial report on Saturday. I'm happy to report too that Sarah McGriff, who is the accountant, she has basically July, August, and September nearly completed. We are withholding those reports right now until we hear more from the council about a decision related to interest from our iPay account, which will be on the next agenda for a decision. So, but we do believe then with September, we'll be able to do some quarterly postings of transfers and be able to get out some reports very quickly. And I will say that things are feeling very caught up in terms of where we are in the current year. But there is a lot of work to still do in the finance department with the audit coming up. The auditors will be on site that first partial week in January. So, and it's budget kickoff time too. So there is just a lot that's happening right now with the finance department and finance staff.
All right. I don't know if council has any questions, but I'll just say, with hiring Sarah and Jessica taking over this interim role, I feel very confident in the work that they've been doing and the rest of the finance department. We just placed the accounting specialist accounts receivable position this week, so the department has been fully staffed for the first time in over a year. So I think with all of that work and the work they've been doing, like Jessica said, we're going to see everything caught up and back on track in no time. That's all I had tonight.
The next item on the agenda is to identify any citizens who would like to speak on any agenda items on our agenda tonight. And I think we do have two people that want to speak. So when we get to that part, I'll have you come up and speak. Anybody else besides those two individuals who want to speak on any agenda items tonight? I got one here. Okay. Thanks, AJ. Anybody else? Okay. We'll move forward to the public hearing.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing regarding the previous adoption of ordinance number 3204, 2022, an ordinance adopting the 2021 version of the International Fire Code as the city's fire protection and prevention code.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and Interim Fire Chief Pat Shorty is going to lead this.
Yeah. Good evening. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk here tonight. When this all came up, obviously it was when we were not in the seat that me and David are in now, me as the interim chief and him as the deputy chief. It's been brought to our attention that the change to the 2021 fire code had a significant impact on the Main Street Iowa project. I don't believe in just making a snap decision so we wouldn't do our due diligence and research some of the background of this. We've met with some of council, some of the Main Street Iowa project, as well as we are starting to talk to some of our sister cities, talk to the fire chiefs, fire marshals, see if they've dealt with this and how they're handling it. Basically get all the information that we can to make sure we're doing our due diligence to handle this the best way possible. Obviously, from the fire department standpoint, life safety is always our number one driving force. If we can figure out a way to do that and make this mesh, obviously we want to do it what's best for everybody. I understand that there was, in 2016, the previous code also covered this, but they made an amendment to it. For whatever reason, that was not, I don't know what the situation was when it was not renewed with the new code. And that's why we're here discussing with everybody. So at this point in time, I feel like we're still researching it a lot, but I'm willing to answer any questions if I can.
Does council have any questions for Interim Fire Chief Short?
I don't have questions, but I have a statement.
Okay.
If that's okay. So I just want to take a moment to explain why I asked for this to come forward. So I have, over the past 2 years, I've had ongoing conversations regarding the fire code and the impact it has had on our 2 occupancies. And that's the section that we're really kind of focusing on. And so over the past 2 years, like I said, I've had those conversations. I've directed people to talk with the prior fire chief and prior assistant fire chief. And when those conversations didn't really happen, I directed them to the city administrator and Mr. Simonson. Oh, he's back there. And so we made a little bit more progress, but it continued to be an ongoing conversation. And that's when I decided that I think that conversation needed to come to a different level, because there was not, we were still at a roadblock with whether just in getting the information and then, so I asked for it to come to council. Myself and interim fire chief Short and interim deputy chief Cronin sat down with, like Chief Short said, multiple people. So we had Main Street GoPip also at the table, and I would say that that was an extremely productive conversation. In that conversation, both of these gentlemen were extremely knowledgeable, which and were willing to listen and have the conversation, which I appreciate. They also informed myself and Councilperson Rowe about an amendment that had been on the previous International Fire Code 2015, which I wasn't aware of, and I don't think you were also aware of. Which leads me to some concerns with the lack of transparency in that last conversation, because we did ask the previous fire chief and deputy chief about any major changes, and we were not informed of that. And whether that amendment needed to be updated or removed, whatever, we weren't allowed to have those, we weren't able to have those conversations because we weren't made aware of those. And I think that it's really important, and again, while safety is the top priority, we have other cities, like Chief Short said, other cities that are facing similar challenges. They've also been able to implement and work with their departments to figure out ways that we can all work together to continue to allow for growth and development of our community. And so I think that everything requires a conversation, and we learn in conversations. And like I said, at that last meeting, I learned so much. We also learned that our Main Street is often asked about from developers about fire code. And if we all want to be on the same page, then we all have to make sure that the right people are on the table. And so that's what bringing this forward does. It allows us to have open conversations, and it allows us to get questions answered without people just kind of deciding, oh, well, this is what's best. Whether we bring an amendment or not, it just allows for conversations and to get on the same page and to understand concerns. So that is truly why I asked for this to come forward, is to have conversations regarding it and to ensure that we're all on the same page and that we're allowing for growth and development of our city and ensuring safety. Thank you.
Does any other council members have any questions for Interim Fire Chief Short before I open it up to the people that would like to speak? Okay, thank you. The first person I'll call forward is Fred Zesiger. Main Street Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I feel like this is becoming a regular thing. I do have a few things that I'd just like to pass out. I'll offer Kara here and she can pass them down the row. Just get one.
Germs.
And I'll explain that after I just, I've been thinking about this and wrote down a few words and thoughts on this. So, obviously, updating fire code is crucial for ensuring public safety, particularly in densely populated downtown areas. However, stringent fire code requirements can pose challenges for downtown revitalization efforts. What happened this last time our fire code was updated by pulling a section on the minimum number of apartments before a unit had to be sprinkled, and a section on change of use or requirements of the building space with change use. One of my jobs as Main Street Director is to help property owners take underutilized buildings, often not well-maintained properties, and make them cash flowing and productive again. Filling those upper floors is key to doing this, and there's always a financial gap that needs to be filled. With the rise in costs of materials, these gaps are starting to become even larger. I wanted to share how fire code changes can negatively impact downtown revitalization. Stricter fire code requirements often lead to higher construction and renovation costs for downtown buildings, making it more expensive for businesses and property owners to invest in revitalization projects. I'm not saying that fire codes are bad, I'm saying that each individual building is different, and I think we need to look at them in different ways. So if we have a real strict fire code, then that makes it more difficult. So if we can make that fire code work for the properties, I think it's better for everybody. I tell property owners to expect to figure $200 to $250 a square foot in rehabilitation costs. That's quite high, and it's growing. Sprinkler systems add an additional $100 to $150,000 at minimum to a project. This cost can work when you get 4 or more units in the building, but that is extremely hard to make a 1 or 2 unit property profitable, and therefore doesn't pencil in paper, and developers usually don't want to do that. The financial burden of complying with updated fire codes can disproportionately affect small businesses and older buildings, potentially leading to their closure or relocation, further undermining downtown vibrancy. Speaking of downtown vibrancy, tearing up our new $6 million streetscape, that was mostly public funded after telling property owners of 2-story properties that they didn't need to bring in a 6-inch fire line for sprinkler safety along that route. Kind of sets a tone of mistrust, not only with me, but with the city itself as well. Now, a lot of those 2-story properties did bring in bigger water lines to feed sinks and bathrooms and toilets and things like that. But we only talked to the 3-story property owners about bringing in the 6-inch line for fire suppression system, because that's what the code said, and that's what I was told would be.
And that has to have a dedicated line, right?
It does.
For sprinkler system.
We have also seen one sprinkler system fail, causing considerable damage to that building and causing damage to the surrounding properties within the last few years too. The heat had been shut off, water lines froze, pipes burst, ruined the business that was downstairs, and subsequently caused damage to the building next door. Downtown areas often contain historic buildings that hold significant cultural and architectural value. Strict fire code upgrades may necessitate modifications or alterations to these structures, potentially compromising their integrity and unique character. Balancing fire safety with historic preservation can be a delicate task. Rigid fire code requirements may force compromises in preserving the historic fabric of downtown, diminishing its appeal and charm. Stringent fire code provisions may restrict the design flexibility of new buildings and renovations, limiting the creative potential of downtown revitalization projects. Excessive fire code requirements can lead to standardized, uninspired design that fail to capture the unique character and identity of a downtown area. Functional limitations imposed by fire code may hinder the adaptive reuse of older buildings for modern purposes, reducing their potential contributions to downtown revitalization. Prohibitive costs and regulatory hurdles associated with fire code compliance can discourage businesses from establishing or expanding in downtowns, hindering economic growth and job creation. Since this has changed, I have already seen 4 housing projects come to a standstill because of the change in our codes. And 1 business concept left the district because we couldn't make the concept work with the code. Sorry. The loss of historic buildings and characters due to fire code compliance can diminish the appeal of downtown, deteriorating tourism and economic activity. We have seen an increase in public safety in many ways downtown, but I think adding the option to live downtown has been one of the best. Not only does it bring a built-in customer base and fills a housing shortage need, but it puts eyes on the street 24/7. Just to share a short story, a couple of years ago, we had a building that was being renovated, and we're sanding the floors and putting the sawdust in a trash can. And if it hadn't been for an upper story resident that had just newly moved in, who smelled that smoldering smoke, even before the smoke alarms went off in either building, was able to contact the fire department and say, hey, I smell smoke, I think there's a fire down here, come check it out. And they did, and they averted that fire, which could have probably taken out the whole block if they hadn't been there. To mitigate the negative impacts of fire code changes on downtown revitalization and its economic growth for the city, I urge you to consider these strategies. 1, a collaborative approach, as Kara was speaking about, foster an open communication with collaboration between fire departments, city planners, business owners, and historic preservationists to develop fire code compliance strategies that balance safety with revitalization goals. 2, performance-based codes, explore performance-based codes and options that allow for alternative solutions to meet fire safety objectives without compromising design flexibility or historic preservation. And 3, depending on how the code ends up, financial incentives provide financial incentives such as tax breaks or grants to offset the cost of fire code compliance for downtown businesses and property owners to help fill that gap. By adopting a thoughtful and collaborative approach to fire code implementation, we can strike a balance between ensuring public safety and fostering the revitalization of our vibrant downtown districts. And then I handed out a little packet. I wanted to just show the first page there are properties that have upper story housing and have all been added within the last 18 years. Obviously, they're all different. I've got some different colors there. The top 3 probably have the most units downtown, and 2 of those are sprinkled. One of them is not. The rest of those properties on that sheet are 2-story properties, 1 and 2 units per building. But you can see when that project started what the building was valued at and what it's valued at today. And then you can also see what they are currently paying in annual taxes. The ones at the bottom that are in yellow, those projects are fairly new. Those property taxes are going to be going up over the next 5 years considerably. And then just as a comparison on the next page, basically the same amount of properties. You can see the difference in the value and taxes that are collected. But all of these properties I kind of identified as potential upper story housing projects and projects that could use some revitalization that will really boost that if we can all work together. And then the very last sheet is just a page that I had at home in my office that I got from a Main Street Highway training that just kind of goes over the cost of an empty building that you don't necessarily think about, but how that affects the whole community. And as you can see, those numbers are pretty low there. It's obviously has a bigger impact than even that says. So I want to thank you for your time, and you guys make the decisions, and I want you to listen to us and help us get this to a point where everybody's happy and everybody's safe. Thank you.
Does council have any questions they want to ask Mr. Zutziger before he leaves?
I just have a comment, Fred. I think most of us really appreciate everything that's been going on downtown, and we want to move forward. And you did a good job with this, explaining a lot of different things, but it still came down to money. You know, so I think when Pat hears back from other fire departments to say, hey, you know, I know we're not the only town that ran into this, what did you guys do to solve it? Then we can get that information and then come back and keep this copy here, and I'm sure we'll come up with some kind of agreement.
Yes, I think so too. And in the past, we have worked together and, you know, I can guarantee you that the apartments that we have downtown are safer than most houses in town. The problem sometimes is that the building next door is not the best. And I work with the city in implementing different things that we can make those buildings safer and then get those into the hands to the people that will invest in those properties. So over the long run, as you can see from that sheet, what those buildings started at before investment was made, those were the worst of the worst. We still have some that are bad and could use improvement, but the worst of the worst, there's one that right now that's really bad that we need to get some new blood into, so thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I do. So, and this is great. I agree with what Doug said, and we all appreciate what's going on downtown. However, I would like, you know, I want to do some research too on the opposite. Like, when you look at sprinkler systems, and I've done a ton of research on this, I mean, we could easily lose a city block if we're not careful with what we do. I know look and historical, you know, preservation is important. However, I just want to do our due diligence looking at the other side too, because it is ultimately about safety.
Absolutely.
There's been, you know.
And like I said too, the properties that we have done, I don't want anybody to think that they're unsafe.
Right.
Because they are
And that's not what I'm.
up to the top.
I just want to make sure we do the research on the other side too, because, you know, I've read some reports where the sprinkler system and those codes have saved a whole city block or saved. But I am glad that the right people are at the table, including the fire department and the people, you know, so, that's what we have.
Thanks, Fred.
Uh-huh.
The next individual to speak would be business owner Jim Schwartz.
Good evening. I'm just going to give a little story about what we've done here at 117, 119 East Main. We acquired that building from the city. They were going to demolish it, and we came up with an agreement to acquire it, and as long as we made some improvements. So we've got a CDBG grant, an upper-story CDBG grant to Main Street, and made 10 market rate apartments. And they're fully sprinkled, and they stay occupied. I mean, it's downtown housing, there's a demand for it. On the first floor, there's 4,200 square feet that's vacant, but it's potentially good retail space. We'd like to subdivide that into like 5 different spaces from 400 square feet to 1,100 square feet along the Canteen Alley, and I think it could be a really attractive space that would, you know, encourage some entrepreneurial development. So we applied for the White Box grant program that the city offers, and were approved and began work. And as we were doing the work, the sprinkler requirements we became aware of, and Wingers, we contacted Wingers, and they gave us this quote on what needed to be done. And we didn't realize exactly what the requirements were, but it was going to have to be the first floor, and then the space above the drop ceiling, and then the basement, which is also partially just a crawl space. So it's basically like, you know, sprinkling 3 floors. And that bid was $48,000. So that just kind of mothballed the project because we couldn't, you know, charge $20 a square foot like they do across the river to potential tenants. And so, you know, we just haven't done anything with it since then. We're not opposed to sprinkling. You know, I think that obviously there's a safety thing that, you know, has to be factored in, but there could be some, you know, compromises if we would like do like a double layer of drywall on the ceiling, and not have to do that 3rd layer. You know, I'm sure there's some conversations that could be had, but if we could get that $48,000, you know, and that was a couple of years ago. I don't know what it would be today, but we could get a lower bid on that to do some work that would make it feasible, where we could, have some activity in that first floor, which I don't know what spread showed you, but it was, it cost the city to have those vacant spaces on the main level. So we'd like to get that developed and finished, and if this is something that could, work out, we would move forward.
Does council have any questions for Tim?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next person would be Realtor AJ Chivak.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'll be brief tonight because running the risk of going last, a lot of the stuff that I wanted to talk about tonight has already been mentioned. But really, I'm here both as a realtor and as a building owner in the downtown district. Some of the concerns that I have are cost. On the flip side, we have still a lot of buildings in disrepair. We have some derelict buildings downtown. The crime rates downtown, I think, are still an issue. A lot of people don't see it unless they have a business or a building downtown. But there are a lot of things happening because of those vacant buildings. Is it safer to have a building in disrepair or have a building sprinkled? I'm not undermining the need for public safety. I do appreciate Pat's comments as well as the comments of Fred and Tim. We need public safety. That's important. But what can we do as a city to help mitigate the issues, the barriers that we see here? I've really kind of broken it down into 3 areas. 1, infrastructure. How can we as a city make bringing the infrastructure to the building more affordable to the building owner? 2, what research can we do to find alternatives to the local options that we have? It's my understanding through various conversations in the past couple of years that we have a couple local companies here in town that do provide the sprinkling service. However, it is very costly. I have also heard that if you go outside of our area, you can find much more reasonable contractors. So I think a little research can be done on who can we partner with to bring the cost down to our community members and to local and hopefully outside investors that are looking to continue to develop the downtown area. And third, and I've seen some communities do this, what can we do in the way of grant funds to help subsidize the cost for property owners to get that sprinkler system into that building and to continue development in a safe manner? That's all I have.
Thank you.
Council have any questions for AJ? Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak before I close the public hearing? If not,
I would just like to say a couple things, Your Honor.
okay.
I just am at risk of a little bit of repetition from what Councilperson Galloway said. I don't think that it should be understated enough that this is, or overstated enough, that this is not some sort of hammer against public safety that we want to look at this. I don't think anybody wants to compromise, number one, the neighbors, and number 2, the firefighters that would be involved, or the police officers that would be involved if something were to catch on fire. I don't think anybody that is thinking logically is going to say, oh, these guys don't care about public safety. The quite opposite is true. You can't progress as a community if you don't have open conversation. I fully believe, we had a meeting last week that there was a lot of information that was shared that a lot of people around the table didn't know about. And having information to be armed with is a powerful thing. So the ability to have those open conversations really is, especially at the governmental level, is paramount to having a good, solid set of code that you're dealing with. We've heard a lot of people say, oh, they have private meetings. No, it wasn't a private meeting. It was a meeting to gather information. One of the things that I know the Director of Development, Simonson, has heard, I've heard, I'm sure Fred has heard it, that developers have an issue with the city of Ottumwa when it comes to dealing with code. Not necessarily fire code, but they have an issue because Ottumwa is notoriously bad for developers to deal with because our code is so complicated and things don't work in the favor of future growth of the community. Now, I can't stress enough when I say that this conversation isn't about money. It's about growth, and it's about making our community a community that people want to come to, and people want to grow in, and people want to grow with. So, you know, it isn't about money, it's about the progression of the community. Again, I'm going to say this for probably the 5th time in the couple of minutes that I've been talking already. We're not going to do that, obviously, at the expense of public safety. But if we can have an open conversation, maybe there is a middle ground. Maybe there are other communities that we could use as a model to make some exceptions to the rule that we have now. And, you know, again, to her point, when we had the vote to move from the 2015 code to the 21 code, we specifically asked as a governing body to the chief and assistant chief at the time, in transparency, are there major changes to this code? We were told at that time, no, there are no major changes. I would argue that taking out an exception that basically obliterates the ability of downtown business owners to be able to do reconstruction is a little bit of a major change. Now, would that have changed the ultimate vote if we were able to have the conversation? Maybe not, but we should have been able to have that conversation. And we weren't given that opportunity because we weren't given that information at the time. So again, I thank the chief and assistant chief for giving us that information. So with that, I guess I would ask the chief and assistant chief, when we had our conversation last, 2 of the things that we had asked to be able to make a fully transparent and fully knowledgeable decision. One of the questions that we asked was, does the fire department have any comparables from other cities at this juncture? And do you have any offered amendments, if there's going to be an amendment offered at this point in time?
We've started doing some of the comparables. We have some of them back. Obviously, not all, and it's wide ranging. There's no set what everybody's doing. So at this point, we are still compiling the information. So no, I do not have where I think it would go at this point. I know there's a time concern with this, and we don't want to drag this out forever, but I do want to make sure we get it right.
Thank you.
So, but I would be more than open to any conversations, whichever group's with, in the sake of trying to get this hammered out and get it finalized.
Do you have a realistic time frame when you could have all that information collected? Like a month or longer than that?
I think we could have something within that time frame for sure. I would think.
I would also like to offer, so while this on the agenda, it's talking about reverting to the 2015, and again, it's on there because again, we didn't understand that there was an amendment. But it's my understanding from that meeting too, there's a 2023 International Fire Code coming, an updated one, correct?
Yes, there is no one coming up.
Do we know when that's gonna be released?
I have not heard yet. Dave, have you heard? Planning on pushing forward without being
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's not a conversation.
Yeah, we'll take care of this before we were about
Okay.
any other updates.
Perfect, I just wanted to double check. Also in your research, would you be able to look at, in 2018, the International Fire Code also emphasized a hazard risk analysis as a way to address like case-by-case situations. Can you, while you're doing your research, can you look, I don't know much about that obviously, but if that's something you could look into too, that would be phenomenal. And I can send you-
Luckily I have Dave because he's a little brighter than I am.
So, perfect, okay. And
Is there anything else?
no, I think that's what I have for right now.
Thank you.
Okay, Pat, wait one second. So when you and I talked, I just wanted to make a comment. You're very open to compromise. And actually, what she said with our conversation, you're very open to a case-by-case basis based on the safety of the building or the structure of the building. It could be had a second egress, could be had a different wall, so.
Yeah, well, in the meeting that we did have, and it was not a secret meeting by any means, it was opened up to many others that just were unavailable at that point in time. The conversation we had was looking into the fact of doing the double sheet rock, which is like a 2-hour barrier, which is ceiling from lower floor, walls, ceiling from floor, added exits, so easier means of egress. These are all possibilities. Those are all parts of what's on the table of the discussion, is possibilities moving forward.
Right, and what I wanted to point out is when we had discussions, is we both know that public safety is number one. However, you were open, you understood the downtown, you understood the dynamic of new business and.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I understand all the projects.
But you understand the
But
value.
I do. I understand the economic concerns with all this. As I said before, my main focus still has to be on life safety.
Exactly.
With that being said, if we can maintain that and make some changes, you know, obviously that's something we're more than willing to look at. Me and Dave are both open to anybody who wants to call, get together. The more conversations we have, as far as I'm concerned, the better. So yes, I agree.
And I would just say my last comment for that would be that, you know, just further conversations, like ongoing conversations with the people who are talking to developers, that the fire department should be at those meetings also, especially when we're looking and talking about fire code.
That's a good idea, yes.
Be glad to.
Perfect.
You want to say?
Yeah, just real quick. So just for the benefit of anyone in the public or new council members as well, the International Fire Code, you know, the reason it's stated on the agenda in some of this way is when we approach this, it has to be done by ordinance. And so we're adopting by ordinance. And so any changes, the International Fire Code can be adopted in whole or in part. With this most recent one, as was mentioned, it looks like there was an amendment that had been on the code prior that was removed, and that was not made aware to council at the time. And so that is where really the crux of this issue came from, because nobody knew what was happening with that, and that discussion didn't occur at that time, whether it was between fire department, council, developers, and so we're trying to have that conversation now, whether it's fixing this part in the future, where we're looking at. And even with that amendment that was in there before, that didn't mean that buildings weren't made to be safe. Egresses were reviewed, you know, other fire preventions to have, like I said, extra firewalls, whatever it was. So the buildings are still safe, and in some cases probably safer because there could have been outdated wiring or other things that were now updated as part of that. So yes, definitely public safety is forefront with all of this, and I don't think any building owner would be responsible of creating an unsafe environment and allowing people to rent from that. So thank you for your work and the meetings that you had to try to bring everyone together to talk about this and get the information. So a good decision.
Welcome. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. One last chance before I ask to close the public hearing. Anybody else want to speak? Zach?
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify a little bit too. The ordinance on the table tonight would be to go back to the previous code. And I know that from the building department's point of view, and also I think Pat and Dave would agree, we don't believe that that's what we should do. I think that we need to look at an amendment that lives inside the 2021 code and not go back to a previous code cycle. There's some good things in the 21 code. And it will be maybe a little more patience to wait, more research to do an ordinance that's specific, but I think that's the better way to go.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? If not, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion closed.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Consideration of reversion of ordinance number 3204, 2022, the city's fire protection and prevention code, the 2021 version. Recommendation, pass the first consideration of replacing the city's fire protection and prevention code by reverting back to ordinance number 3095, 2016, that includes the 2015 International Fire Code.
I would make a motion to table this, as the council is in no position at this juncture to make an educated decision on the matter.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, so I guess I would just kind of push back and wonder if we need to reject it and then ask for a work session regarding kind of what Mr. Simonson said about the current code and if an amendment is more appropriate.
So I can say, I would echo that. I think the way that this is, isn't the best way that we want to have it. So even passing this at some point in the future, it'll most likely be revised. And as I mentioned, if we're looking at making changes to the International Fire Code, we have to have a public hearing that needs to be published, and the public needs to have an ability to look at that. So I think if there are changes coming from research that's being done, it'd be best to take a step back, have a work session, get those things hammered out, and then be able to provide that as a recommendation before the public.
Can I speak again? Correct me if I'm wrong though, but at any point in the future, if the item is on the table, we can amend that motion at that point, even though it reads as this.
That may be a better question for the attorney. If it significantly changes, I don't know if that would necessarily apply.
Because if we're looking to change it to, is the attorney on?
Yeah.
If we're looking to, like, not actually revert, but then change the current code, then that would be a significant change, correct?
Is it Christine tonight?
Yes.
Christine, could you?
Christine here. So any changes to a uniform code do require a public hearing. So I would say if you want to have a work session and, you know, if the desire of the council is not to revert back to the 2015 code, but instead to have a work session and consider changes to the 2021 fire code, I would say it would be appropriate to reject this ordinance, have your work session, and then sort of start over at that point.
My concern with taking it off or not having it on the table is the loss of sense of urgency for the project.
Well, we could schedule a work session rather quickly though, right? Because they're saying that they need about a month to do the research. And so if we schedule, and we're kind of booked until January, so we could put it on for January? Or I guess before. We probably, or before. Wait, do we have a before?
Not really.
Won't have a chance before, or full.
Okay. I see what you're saying too.
Well, and just looking ahead, you know, we do have several finance issues that are going to take precedent, including budget that's going to be coming at the first of the year. And obviously there are other items, I'm assuming, in personnel that are going to be coming at the first of the year as well. Not having this at the forefront, it's going to be easy to continually push it back. That's happened several times in the past, and I would hate to see that happen if this item isn't at the eyes at all times.
Well, can't we just request that a work session happen in January regarding this issue? Regarding the fire code?
Yes.
Christine, if the thought was to simply, or maybe not simply, but to replace or reinstitute the exemption that was in the prior code and not revert the whole code, would that suffice with our current ordinance version here?
I don't think so, because when you're changing a uniform code, you have to have the part of the notice to the public is telling them what uniform code version you're planning to change and identifying that. I think with this notice and, proposed ordinance, it was basically that the city was going to make changes to was going to revert back to the 2015 edition. So my recommendation would be to do another notice and make it clear that the city is wanting to make changes to the 2021 version of the fire code.
Instead of reverting back to the 2015.
Correct.
So we have a
So, is there a willingness to rescind the motion that's been made and seconded? For tabling it?
Yes.
Doesn't Mark have to?
Mark has a motion.
Mark has a motion, so he has to be willingness.
I'll rescind it as long as there's a good faith effort by the staff and council to keep this at the top of mind.
Well, I guess I would request that it is on the, that we have a work session. I mean, if we could have on January 9th, I think that would be phenomenal. And I know we don't have our schedule yet, so anyways.
We have a first to reject, do we have a second?
Second.
And then I could put in there the caveat to hold the meeting in January or the dates that you would like, we could put that in
The motion?
the motion.
That'd be great.
If that's what you guys would like.
Do you have
In January, yeah.
do you have the motion to table officially rescinded then?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so then, is there any other discussion, or can I take roll?
Is there any more discussion before we take roll?
Can you just state the motion again? Just for.
So the motion is to reject the first consideration of replacing the city's fire protection and prevention code by reverting back to ordinance 3095, 2016. And we're going to hold a work session, preferably the first couple weeks in January. I don't know if it works out to be January 9th, but I'll look at the calendar and I'll put that in there. So that's the motion. To reject what's presented to you today.
Now we're ready to take the roll?
Yep. Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman? Yes. Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Okay, we have no ordinances, so we'll move to departmental board of commission recommendations and reports.
Proposed fee increases for the Beach Ottumwa. Recommendation approve the proposed fee increases for the Beach Ottumwa effective January 1, 2024.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Gene?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. At the meeting of the Ottumwa Parks Advisory Board on November 14th, 2023, the Park Board approved the following fee increases. Group lessons going from $25 to $30. Individual lessons for one child, $10 to $20. Individual lessons for two children, $13 to $25. Individual lessons for three children, $16 to $30. Indoor birthday parties would increase from $110 to $120. Outdoor birthday parties would increase from $130 to $140. The entire facility rental per hour before 5 p.m. would increase from $450 to $700. The entire facility rental per hour after 5 p.m. would go from $450 to $500. Summer pass sold between December 1st and January 31st would increase from $65 to $80. Summer pass sold from February 1st to August 30th would increase from $75 to $90. And then tube and locker rentals would increase from $2 a day to $3 a day. These proposed fee increases should generate an additional $23,000 in revenue for the Beach Ottumwa. If approved, the new fees will go into effect on January 1st, 2024.
Does council have any questions for Gene?
I do. Are we not increasing the indoor facility rental fee?
No, we're not right now.
Do you anticipate any loss of traffic as a result of the increased fees?
I do not, because there's very strong demand for all these things. And the park board decided not to increase the daily admission fees, and that's where we would probably lose some customers. But with these things, I don't think we'll lose any business at all.
I got a question on number 7, Gene. Why such a big jump from 450 to 700? Just curious.
Well, when we book a party outdoors or for the entire facility in the summer, before 5 p.m., that pretty much shuts the beach down all day long, so that we're not open to the public. And by doing that, we lose out on all that daily admission revenue, which could be as much as $5,000 to $6,000 per day.
Is there any way, and I'm just asking a question here because I'm naive to this, is there any way you just not set the parties up till after 5?
Well, that's what we try to do, is direct people so they have their parties after 5 p.m. But we have big groups like UAW, JBS and so on that want to start their parties at 11 a.m. and go until 4 or 5 p.m. I mean, they want the whole facility basically all day in prime time.
Okay.
And, you know, they pay a lot of money, so we give them what they want.
is it okay? Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the $23,000 based on? Is that based on attendance last year? Is the $23,000 additional dollars, is that based on attendance last year? Or did you take into account years, because you said these fees would add an additional $23,000?
Yeah, what I looked at was revenue in each of those line items from the past fiscal year, then I factored in the percentage increase.
Okay, and then, and you gotta understand, the reason I'm asking some questions is I do have a little concerns with the increases, because you know what the impact it would have on the everyday people who would go there. What would the $23,000 be used for? Would it be used for staffing? Would it be used for improvements to the park? Would it be used?
Well, mainly it would be used to reduce our reliance on property tax revenue in the general fund, because the beach unfortunately loses money every year, and we're trying to narrow that gap so it doesn't lose as much money. But, you know, in the past few years, we've had to give our staff a $3 per hour pay increase just to recruit and retain lifeguards. So we're trying to recover those losses.
Right, and the only reason I ask these questions is I did look up a few things, and we're gonna increase the fees, and of course, we want citizens to come, and we wanna be fair to them with our pricing, and we wanna be fair, you know, we wanna to draw the surrounding areas, and this, again, I'm just asking questions. When we talk about increasing fees, I did look up some posts from October 3rd, August, July, where, you know, and the only reason I ask this is because we're increasing fees, changes to lap swim, closed for the day, sorry for the inconvenience. We would be closing at 4:30, sorry for the inconvenience, no concessions today. And it seems like we're only giving people a few minutes to do that. And if we go on to indoor only open today, closing early with only 30-minute notice. And you know, my concern there is parents bring their kids there, and you know, sometimes there isn't a 30-minute notice. There was one actual post that said, after being open for 40 minutes, we decided to close for the day. So these are my concerns when we increase fees. And then there were many others that said the park was open, but the speed slides aren't. Or the outside, some of the outsides aren't open, or the inside ones. So if we're increasing fees to use the park, will we increase our efforts so everything can be used in the park? You see where I'm coming from? It's just, I think a quick way to destroy the business is, number one, not to be consistent with business hours, not to be consistent with our citizens and people we want to visit our park.
Yeah, most of the things that you mentioned were staffing issues, because we were losing staff because we couldn't attract enough due to our current wage rates. So the only way to do that, generate more revenue so that we can pay our staff more.
Right, so where are we at on staffing right now? I mean, where were we at on staffing? Are we doing something to attract more staffing? Do we have programs in place?
Yeah.
Right, I mean, besides that, what are we doing to attract the people to come down to work for that $3 more an hour?
Well, I was over at high school job fair in October, recruiting lifeguards. And the feedback I'm getting from the staff is that they want a pay increase because they can make $14 or $15 an hour somewhere else out in the community, but the starting lifeguard wage is only 11, and they work in the concession stand at the 2 check, it's only 10. So
I would also say that if you look at the individual lessons, like current and proposed, well, first off, I mean, that's a steal at $13. And so then when you have it at $13, you're not gonna be able to pay the people doing the lesson and the facility anything. So $25, if you do a comparison, is actually pretty normal. I did my child's birthday party at the beach this past September, and I was shocked at the cost of it, like, because it was so cheap. Again, I think that we have to look at staffing, and we can't attract and we can't increase our staffing if we don't have the funding for that too.
Well, and I believe that too. Yeah, I'm not trying to destroy there. We just can't increase traffic either if everything in the park's not open when we're asking them to pay fees or.
And we can't have everything open at the park if we don't have the staffing. So I think it's just something
Yeah,
to
it seems like
remember.
we're in a circle.
Yes.
I mean, we need, like, if I'm gonna pay for these fees, or I'm gonna pay for a summer pass, or I'm gonna pay for whatever these are, I think I should be able to use everything in the park, and I understand the staffing is an issue. It's not specific to Ottumwa, it's not special to Ottumwa, it's nationwide. However, I think there are other ways that, you know, that we could recruit the staffing we need, and I'm sure he's doing that, and I'm sure he's working hard to do that. However, giving people 30 minutes notice before we close, those are the kind of things I'm concerned about.
Yeah, we do have policies on closing, and some of those outdoor closings were weather related also.
Right, there were low temperatures, I didn't list those. I didn't list the ones that said low temperatures or weather related.
So if I could interject, this has actually been an ongoing conversation. I remember having this conversation 5-6 years ago on price increases over at the beach. But, you know, at the end of the day, what it really comes down to, and Councilman Hoffman, I think that you said it, you know, if we're gonna run a business, we have to, at some point, treat it like a business. And, you know, we don't want to have a deficit at the beach, but we also, in the community, don't want to pay the price that it takes to operate the place like a business. You know, we can't continue to charge, you know, a rate that's quite honestly less than most equivalent water parks in the state of Iowa, and anticipate that we're going to have any good result for that. You know, I'm very sensitive to the staffing issues that Gene has, because, you know, daycare is another issue here in the city of Ottumwa, where this exact same conversation happens on an hour by hour basis. You bring somebody in, lifeguards have to be trained. We have to pay money to train them, and then we pay them $10, $11 an hour. Well, as soon as the job opens up at Subway where they can get $15 an hour, those people skate. And why wouldn't they skate? Because they can make $4 more an hour and have no responsibility for human life on their hands. So again, if we want to have something that is going to reduce the burden from the tax base of the city of Ottumwa, which everybody in the city of Ottumwa clearly wants to happen, then we have to treat these entities that we have more like a business, like you said, Councilperson Hoffman, to where we increase prices to an amount that is justifiable of the service that's being offered. I look out at Tim Albert here, another prime example. We've had the conversation with water and with sewer for years, where we want to make sure that we're not overbearing the prices that we have to pass on to the customers. But at the same time, we keep sliding backwards every year because we do not offer cost of living adjustments where they need to be offered, and then at some point it comes to bite us. Jumping back to the beach here for a second, we didn't want to treat it like a business for years, and it cost us $2.8 million over the last few years to get that place back up to running, so it didn't get closed down because it was a safety hazard to the community. And had we taken care of that stuff through pricing, through maintenance programs, it probably would have cost half of that amount. So if we want to treat it like a business, we absolutely need to treat it like a business. And sometimes, unfortunately, that means prices have to go up to accommodate the business.
And I was gonna say, when we also ease the burden of the beach on the general fund, then we free up money for other things that we need to.
Such as public safety that everybody's been talking about.
Correct.
And I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, I understand the staffing issues, and I understand. I just want to make sure if they're paying to get in, they're getting what they're paying for, and we keep our hours. Like you said, it's a business, we need to run it like a business.
So just real quick, in addition to staffing dollars, the cost of chemicals, repairs, electricity to run the wave pool, all that stuff, those are all going up as well. So, I mean, it's trying to keep up with the state of inflation with this. And I gotta say, I think the summer pass is the same since at least 2020. That's been $75 since I moved here. Some of these I don't think have been increased in several years.
Most of the fees haven't increased on this list in at least 15 years.
It's not as much about the increases as the way we're running. Closing early, 30 minutes. I mean, we've been here 40 minutes and decided to close early. I mean, what if somebody drove from Albee? I mean, we want to draw. We know a lot of people come from other towns, so I mean, we went to Walmart and they just decided to close at noon. So that's my point.
Yeah, and we can debate this for 14 days in a row. We're gonna end up with the same answer. Hopefully by increasing and paying them $15 an hour, they're gonna take a little more pride in their work and not have a tendency to book up early if they wanna book up early.
I don't know if it's necessarily they don't take pride in their work. I think sometimes when a shift change happens, they have people who don't show up. So sometimes
Well,
that
that's
happens.
taking pride in their work.
They don't, yeah, but I mean, they don't have any control over that.
No, I'm not, yeah.
So that's why I think sometimes they've had to give very short notice, because they don't have enough staff to do what they need to do. They can't have it open.
Or no one's there.
Yeah.
Well, there's a safety issue. You have to have so many lifeguards per people in the pool.
Yeah.
And also remember too that sometimes, I think that one post that you're talking about, Councilperson Hoffman, was, I don't think there had been anyone in the beach for like 40 or so minutes. Like it had been a very long time without people in the beach. So,
40
and
minutes?
what?
40 minutes?
I mean, if you,
No, that's fine. I mean, 40 minutes just doesn't seem that, it's kind of how you perceive it. It just doesn't seem that long to me. It's just important to me that the people visiting, the citizens, you know, that it's okay, I agree with the raising of the fees. I know that chlorines went up 20%. I know the other chemicals have went up 19%. I know 2021 had devastating effects on the pool chemicals. I've read all that. My point is not the fees. My point is we need to run it like a business. We owe it to the city. It's like Mark said, it's kind of been a burden. The least we can do is keep going forward and keep making it better. Be open when we say we're gonna open, have the attractions open when we say we're gonna have the attractions open so we can get the people in there and they can enjoy the park, all of the park. I understand troubles with staffing. I understand troubles with chemicals. We just need to keep moving forward with that.
Any other questions or comments for Gene? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Price quote for JCB 3CX compact backhoe for the Ottumwa cemeteries. Recommendation to approve the purchase of a new compact backhoe for the Ottumwa cemeteries from Rooters of Osceola for a price quote of $143,610.20.
Move the recommendations presented.
Second.
Okay, Gene.
The city of Ottumwa has received a price quote for a new JCB 3CX backhoe from Rooters of Osceola for $143,610.20. This new backhoe will replace a 23-year-old JCB backhoe that is worn out and will no longer dig graves. The purchase of this new backhoe will be funded by proceeds from the Helen Maring Estate, which has donated $337,072.86 to the Ottumwa cemeteries. A compact backhoe with specialized options is necessary for digging graves in between gravestones, trees, and other obstacles at the cemeteries. The purchase of this new backhoe has been approved by the City of Ottumwa Fleet Committee and the Ottumwa Cemetery Board of Trustees. A copy of the evaluation of the old backhoe is attached, and the price quote from Rooters is also attached.
Gene, the question that I had was, this is the only price quote you tried to secure, and was there other people contacted you to return one?
I've done extensive research on this backhoe, and this is the only compact backhoe on the market that will work in our situation. Most of the other compact backhoes are attachments to tractors, which won't work in our situation, or the other backhoes are full-size backhoes that are way too big and bulky for use in our cemeteries because they're constantly digging graves in between gravestones, under trees, next to trees, and other obstacles. So that's why they wanted this particular backhoe with all these options on it.
Okay, thank you. Does council have any questions for Gene? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Thank you, Gene.
Replacement of flow monitors at water pollution control facility. Recommendation to approve the replacement of 3 flow loggers and analyzer modules from Gurney in the amount of $19,499.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Philip?
Thank you, Mayor. So So this recommendation is to replace automated flow monitoring equipment at 3 of our 10 combined sewer overflow locations. These flow meters are over 20 years old and they're failing. We use these flow monitors to measure the amount of flow going out of these combined sewer overflows, the duration of the flows, and they also automatically take samples of the flow as it's flowing past there. What they were originally used for 20 years ago was when we had our consent decree to separate our sewers, we had to get a baseline of what we were sending to the river then. For the past 20 years, we've been sending reports to the DNR. What we'll do is we'll replace a few of them every year, and then the old ones we replace, we'll take those, we'll keep them at the wastewater facility, and we use them for spare parts for the few older ones we still have left. In the future, these new ones will still be used. We'll hopefully use this data they gather in order to negotiate with EPA if and when we have to extend our consent decree, and we'll have a data to back up the fact that we've separated out this much area and this much flow that it was no longer going to the river.
Any questions from council for Philip? John, did you have anything you want to add?
I'm glad we're coming behind the backhoe.
Oh, the budget, sorry. So we budgeted $180,000 in capital equipment at the wastewater plant. 20,000 of that was for flow monitors, and this is coming out of that line item budget.
If there's no further questions, I'll ask Chris to take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City of Ottumwa Employee Assistance Services. Receive report and update.
And we have HR Director Kocha.
Thank you, sir. So this is nothing for you to vote on. This is just an update of some exciting things that we've got for our employees. We are in the process right now of implementing a new EAP, which is an employee assistance program. This will be a program that is for all of our employees, their dependents, and also anybody who lives in their home. So if an employee maybe has a mother or father-in-law or someone that lives in their home, they would actually be able to use this EAP as well. What an EAP will do is it offers a lot of different services for our employees. A lot of it is pertaining to mental health. So this may be whether it's stresses at work, maybe health and wellness, maybe some mental health concerns that they do have. This will be a program that will be able to help our employees with that. So what we did was we had heard some concerns throughout this year and last year. We had some employees that had approached us within HR about maybe seeking some help or maybe asking some questions of some different things that we didn't currently have the resources for. So one question we had come up was about retirement and kind of navigating through everything that happens with retirement. We had a question that come up about some financial resources on financial planning and not only looking at retirement, but just like basic budgeting and different things like that. We have had some employees also that have asked some questions just about some mental health concerns and some mental health questions that they had. We currently had a contract with Southern Iowa Mental Health. And I want to be perfectly clear that they've been fantastic that we've worked with. We have not had any issues whatsoever with Southern Iowa Mental Health. What this will do is this just expands the services. Southern Iowa Mental Health does not offer some of the other things that a traditional EAP does, which include some of the legal consultation, financial consultation, and different things like that. So we've talked with Christina Sharp, let her know, again, there's been absolutely no issues with them. This is just expanding that service for our employees. With this, our employees will have a number of different options that they can choose to seek assistance. There are text message availability, so if somebody doesn't want to talk on the phone and they would rather text with someone, they have the ability to do that. There is a phone number that is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There are self-help videos that are out there available on both the website and the application. There are group therapy sessions that they can do. Those group sessions could be anonymous as well. The company that we chose to go with is CureLink, And the way that we came about with them is we actually approached our third-party benefits administrator, which used to be NJBNA, which is now Gallagher. And they have done a lot of these EAP research for many different of their cities and other clients that they have. So they put out an RFP and they came back with 3 different companies. Katie, our HR generalist, and I met with those different companies, kind of went through the proposal and all the different things that they offer. We met with 2 of them. We met with CareLink and we also met with a company by the name of ESI. Based on what we saw, we felt that CareLink was the best option for our employees. They offered the most for our employees. We felt really good with the transition and the implementation and just everything that they had to offer. So CareLink is that company that we have decided to go with. The cost for this is just under $7,000 per year for all of our employees. And what this would cover is this would cover 6 sessions per employee per issue. So if an employee was feeling depressed and maybe they needed somebody to talk to, they would have 6 sessions with that. If then there's maybe some work stressors that come, there would be 6 sessions with that then as well. Same thing, like I said, with their family members. CareLink does have a specific program that is geared towards teens. So as teens are going through everything that they are, there's also assistance that's there. And again, reaching out to the teens through their preferred method of communication. There are also workplace videos that are on there too. So if we possibly have maybe a manager who has an employee that might be transitioning from one gender to the next and there's questions on that, or how do I effectively deal with that or work through that, CareLink offers a lot of resources there as well. They do offer on-site resources, so if we were to have some type of critical incident, they would actually have people that would come on site and work with us. There's many different languages that they also offer their things too. So it can also be, the website's translated, the app can be translated, any of the communication that we've got could be translated as well. And then they also partner with a lot of different providers that also are bilingual or multilingual too. They work with our insurance, so we have provided them all of our insurance information, so that way, and the intent behind that is to make sure that if an employee is seeking assistance now and maybe it's gonna go beyond those 6 sessions, it would then transition to the employee's insurance information. And so for those employees that do have our insurance, they would make sure that they would find providers that would be covered under that. If an employee does not have our insurance, CareLink does work with many, many different nationwide partners, and so they do state that they do cover most common insurance companies. So as far as the funding for it, we have budgeted for the last few years a little over just about $12,000 out of our wellness program. We have not used that amount over the last few years. And as we look at for this year, what comes out of that is our Healthy Choices. This is the program where employees and their spouses can get blood drawn to do the blood panel to take back to their primary care provider, and also our flu shots. When we looked at our last year, we spent about $8,000 out of that account last year. This year, we are not on pace to spend that much of it. So one of the things that we looked at is we've got the funding for it, but this should also help with some of our insurance claims as well. Employees may be seeking different things through this EAP, and that may reduce our insurance claims too. So just wanted to provide an update that is something we are working with the implementation on this now, and we are on track to roll this out as of January 1st.
So would this be something that would totally replace Southern Iowa Health Center? Would this augment what you're doing with them?
This would replace Southern Iowa Mental Health.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I just want to say, I think it's fantastic. I've worked in prior companies, worked with EAPs, and if it was $7,000 or $27,000, it's really hard to put a price tag on the well-being of your employees and coworkers. And you know, if one life can be saved as a result of this program, it's worth 20 times that amount of money.
Yeah, I would echo what Councilperson Rose said too, and also just looking at the some of the information, like the average time to schedule, 3.3 days for in-person is phenomenal when it can take a month to 2 months for new people. So that's like, it's addressing the needs now, and then it allows us to allows the employee or the person to get into the needed services long-term. So I just think it's absolutely phenomenal. And just the wide variety of services that this really does and topics that this addresses is amazing, because I think that we often forget that there's other stressors that add to depression and to mental health, and we don't really think of that. So I'm beyond excited to see this and for our employees.
That was one of the reasons that we went with CareLink. We really liked, they've got dedicated people that, so like when an employee calls, they have a dedicated like case manager, that person is with that employee through the entire thing. So even as it transitions over to possibly private insurance or things like that, that would help with that. We've had some mental health concerns that have come up, and we've heard from employees, I just don't know how to navigate the system. I don't know how to do that. And that's what they've got this case manager for. They have retirement planners. So again, as we look at, I think a couple of years ago, we had said 25% of our workforce is going to retire. This now will help as they've got questions, and we've gotten a lot of those. What do I do for insurance? What do I do for Medicare? And what do I do in all of these different places? This company can actually help with that. There's financial consulting. There's even, if you need to know of a local painter, that's one of the services that they offer. If you need to find somebody local to do something, whether it's pet care. I mean, they talk a lot about pet insurance. I know I catch a lot of flack for that, but they talk about pet insurance and where to find it and what to do and what it is. But there's really a lot of services that they offer. And that was one of the reasons we went with CareLink.
It's great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 197, 2023, awarding the contract for the Greater Ottumwa Park Soccer Complex project to Bi-State Contracting of West Burlington, Iowa, with a base bid amount $3,048,138. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 197, 2023.
With the recommendations presented.
Second. Okay, Gene.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Ottumwa received 4 bids for the Greater Ottumwa Park Soccer Complex project. The bids were opened at 2 p.m. on November 1st, 2023. The low base bid was from Bi-State Contracting in the amount of $3,048,138. The bids and bid tabulation are attached. The alternate bids will not be accepted. This project will involve the construction of 3 high-quality soccer fields in the northwest quadrant of Ottumwa Park, also known as Central Addition Park. And at this point, I would like to thank the Ottumwa Regional Legacy Foundation for their leadership in guiding this project to this point. They've done a fantastic job.
Does council have any questions for Gene?
Go ahead.
Just so we're clear, where's the funding coming from?
That was my question too.
The project will be funded by the Ottumwa Regional Legacy Foundation.
In its entirety?
In its entirety.
Wow.
We do have Andy Maw here from the Legacy Foundation if you'd like to ask Andy any questions.
Does council have any questions they want to ask Andy? We can have him come up. Yes, no? Okay. If there's no further questions, then Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Thank you, Gene.
Resolution number 198, 2023, awarding the contract for the Richmond Avenue Pump Station Improvements Project to DC Concrete and Construction of Downs, Iowa, in the amount of $86,750. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 198, 2023.
Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Philip.
Thank you, Mayor. So first, a quick refresher. This project is taking an existing force main that was previously run from just outside the Richmond pump station to the Finley box, and it's just connecting that force main to the pumps inside the pump station, so the work will all be just right around the pump station. The bids were received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on November 29th, 2023. The project was advertised on the City of Ottumwa website and Master Builders of Iowa. We had 12 contractors that took out plans on it. Of those, 4 submitted bids. The low bidder was DC Concrete and Construction of Dowds, Iowa, in the amount of $86,750. The estimate for the project is $90,000, so it came in slightly under the estimate.
Does council have questions for Philip? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution number 199, 2023, approving the annual budget of the Department of Water Works Board of Trustees for calendar year 2024. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 199, 2023.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Allen, it's all yours.
All right. Good evening. Some overall observations. The revised estimate for our current 2023 year budget shows a surplus of $265,482. It originally projected a deficit of $740,493. Due to some late start of a few projects that we do with the city, it allowed a little bit of cost savings. Those projects will move on to next year. This year's projected budget shows a deficit of $717,750. The 2024 water sales revenue was projected with a 5% rate increase that will go into effect January 1st. Projected water sales are expected to be a little bit less. People are being more efficient. This increase was simply to offset massive inflationary pressure that our nation's experiencing. Interest income is looking better than it has in the past for some of our reserves. Other revenue is expected to remain relatively stable. Overall expenses are projected to increase 5.8% over the 2023 budget. We continue to expect chemical costs to see inflationary pressures. We've included sick payouts for up to 3 possibly retiring individuals. Our production expenses are expected to increase by 7.2%. Chemical costs make up 4% of this increase. Distribution expenses are only projected to go up about 4%. We have a few newer employees due to some retirements. So debt service should remain relatively flat, same as last year. Some of our major projects we have coming up, obviously, is we partner with the city for the East End Sewer Separation Project. So that's where the lion's share of our capital improvement go to. Additionally, we are going to be going out to bid soon for a new water main near Subway and the fire station, North Wapello Street. We'll end up taking one of those 12-inch mains up behind Anderson, Larkin over the hill that way, as the DOT looks to do that project along there. Yeah, so open for any questions.
Council have any questions for Tim?
He's heard this before.
I
So.
was just looking at Bill.
I understood it.
Okay, if there's no questions, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Resolution number 206, 2023, approving change order number 1 to the contract for demolition and asbestos abatement of the condemned property at 831 Lillian. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 206, 2023.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Jake.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. After the work began on this project, the contractor identified chimney flue wrap materials suspected to contain asbestos. The asbestos inspector confirmed the material was asbestos containing and was missed during the initial inspection. The contractor has proposed a change order number 1, which increases the contract sum by $1,500.
And you have the funding to cover that, right?
You would do. And this will still come under the other bids, and this would have been an issue with the other bids as well, so.
Does council have any questions for Jake? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I'll ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on any items that are not on our agenda tonight. Okay, if not, we'll move on to Mayor, City Council report and/or communications. I don't have a specific report to make. However, I'll ask if there's any communications or announcements that any of the council would like to make to the public.
Not today.
Carrie usually has some.
No, nothing today.
Anybody else have any communications or anything they want to make? All right, if not, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes. We are adjourned, and thank you, everybody, for attending tonight's city council meeting.